Afternoon, this is Dr. John Bennett broadcasting from sunny Miami, windy Miami, hurricanes hitting the whole East Coast. Anyways, we have a great presentation today with Christina King from UCLA and UC at Irvine. She's going to give a presentation on brain-computer interface and muscle stimulation and quadriplegia. And we have a distinguished panel with us today. We'll introduce Sam and then we'll turn it over to Christina. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do and stuff?
Yeah, sure. My name is Sean Orr. I'm a neurologist. My background is in critical care neurology, endovascular therapy, stroke, neurosalvage. Have branched out over the last couple of years and have had the great pleasure of working with a medical device company called Irvine, based out of Israel. And my current interest really is in creating ways to allow people to access strategies to help improve their brain function in a sort of a commoditized fashion to give access to everybody.
Welcome, Sean. We've done some hangouts with Sean, too. Okay, Mohammed.
My name is Mohammed Saleh. I'm a recent graduate from medical school, and I'm come today from Toronto, Canada. Nice to be with you.
Welcome, Mohammed. And Gene.
Yes, hi, I'm Gene Ostrovsky. I'm the editor of medgadget, and I've been running the site for about 10 years now. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming and joining us.
Very good. Welcome, Gene. And okay, Christina, could you start off a little bit by telling about yourself, your background, your training, and where you're doing the research before you launch into your presentation? And welcome.
Sure. So hi, my name is Christine King. I have a PhD in biomedical engineering from the University of California, Irvine. I did my biomedical engineering PhD in brain-computer interfaces for neurorehabilitation. And so now I am at UCLA, just finishing up my postdoc on wireless health systems for those who have stroke.
Very good. Very good. Okay, you can start your presentation.
Great. So I don't know if you can screen share.
Yeah, I'll screen that share right now.
Thanks.
Okay. Can you see it okay?
Yes, great.
Okay.
So let me just grab it. Thank you. All right, so thank you all for coming. So today I wanted to present my dissertation work that I performed at UC Irvine on brain-computer interfaces for those with spinal cord injury, specifically for those with paraplegia. And the title of this talk is Think to Walk, because that's what a brain-computer interface actually does. So if you could do the next slide, that'd be great.
Can you see this screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go to the, hold on, let me go to the slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, yes. You see that okay?
Yes, great.
Okay.
So currently, when you have a spinal cord injury and have paralysis, you are typically given a wheelchair in order to regain mobility after your injury. However, this is a substitutive behavior, and there's a lot of medical comorbidities or medical issues associated with extensive use of a wheelchair. So one thing us engineers have been looking to do is to find an actual restorative treatment to walking, which will allow actual walking after your spinal cord injury. And one technology that we can use to figure this out is a brain-computer interface. Can you do the next slide, please?
Okay, hold on.
No problem. Sorry about the
It's okay.
slides.
Okay.
Okay, so what is a brain-computer interface? Well, it sounds exactly what it is. It takes neurophysiological signals from your brain, sends these signals into a computer in real time, which then decodes and determines what the user's intentions is. Then the computer translates those intentions into control signals, which then sends it to your external device, such as a robot or the functional electrical stimulation of your own legs, which I'll discuss in 1 second. Once this happens, the movement or whatever the intention was then occurs, thus providing feedback to the user. Can you do the next slide, please? Thank you. So we hypothesized that a non-invasive brain-computer interface-driven functional electrical stimulation device for overground walking could be controlled by a person with paraplegia due to spinal cord injury. Now, what is a functional electrical stimulation device? Well, this simply electrically stimulates your own muscles over pads mounted on your legs, allowing your muscles to contract when the stimulation occurs, because it allows the neurons to fire to control your muscle groups. If we do this in a specific type of pattern, we can actually recreate overground walking. And the device that you're seeing down there in the bottom right corner is actually a Parastep device. This is made by Sigmetics Group in Fairborn, Ohio. And what it does is it electrically stimulates your gluteal muscles, your thighs, as well as your tibialis anterior or your shins, to allow you to perform the cyclic-like motions of walking. As well, it can allow you to sit, stand, and walk, all while using the Parastep system through the FES and using manual control switches that are mounted on the walker. Can I have the next slide, please? So what did we do? Well, this was a simple case study where we wanted to see if we could build such a device and if it was feasible to use it in a person with paraplegia. So our participant was over 5 years since his spinal cord injury. He was my age, so late 20s, and he was about a T6 thoracic level paraplegia. What we did is we first had him train in a brain-computer interface virtual reality system, which is what you see in the top right corner there. That's actually a video game made from Half-Life 2, and it allowed him to train his brainwaves to see if he could think about walking or attempt to walk and not think about walking to control the avatar on his screen. We also then put him in a local mat. It's a robotic exoskeleton they use for gait training after spinal cord injury, to again see if we had a safe way of figuring out whether he can use his brainwaves to control walking in real time. However, the focus of this talk will be for the functional electrical stimulation device that we created, which we performed the BCI virtual reality training, as well as a functional electrical stimulation training, where he had a physical therapist perform sit to stand and walk again using the device, as well as at-home functional electrical stimulation strength and endurance training, since he's 5 years post-injury, it took a bit of time to get his muscles to be strong enough, as well as to be able to withstand the FES stimulation for a long period of time. So once he learned the movements to be able to sit, stand, and walk again using the Parastep or FES system, we then moved and integrated the two so that he can then do BCI FES control. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Great. So this is what our BCI FES system looks like. Since it's all completely non-invasive, we used an electroencephalogram or EEG cap to record his brainwaves. These signals were sent wirelessly to a computer, which then translated it into walking or not walking, which then determined what control commands to send wirelessly again from the computer to the functional electrical stimulation device. The actual FES controller was mounted in a fanny pack in front of him, and there were battery packs and an amplifier for the EEG system mounted in a backpack behind him. So this is completely wireless except for the computer, which can easily be replaced if we used a small laptop. In addition, in order to understand whether or not he was actually moving and to assess the performance of this device, we used a laser mounted on the ceiling that was along the 0G track. This is simply a device that allows people to safely be able to perform gait training and will catch them if they fall, as well as gyroscopes and accelerometers mounted on his ankle, so I can assess how well he was actually walking using this device. Next slide, please. Great. So now I just want to show you a bit of results from the actual training as well as the using the device itself. So if you don't mind, this might take a second, but I need to switch it to the video.
Okay, I'm going to go off the screen share, okay? And you're going to take over, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is like Monday Night Football.
So I'm on screen share. Let's see if it works. Are you able to see that?
Not yet. Not yet. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Yes, we are. We are able to see it.
Great. So what you're seeing here is he's playing the video game, again, to see if he's able to even use these electrophysiological signals as a control. As I said, he was 5 years post-injury, so we didn't even know if due to cortical reorganization, if these signals still existed. So what he's simply doing is trying to move his legs, and he says he just tries to get up and walk whenever the avatar is actually walking. And then when he sees one of these people or cones, he's asked to stop and greet the person at the cone for about 2 to 3 seconds so that he can receive a verbal greeting. So as you can see right now, he's about to stop at a cone, and the guy gives him a verbal greeting, and then he moves on. What he does to stop is simply stop thinking about walking. And the great thing about using our brain-computer interface is that it's completely data-driven. So we filter out all the other signals that are associated with different types of movements besides just the ones dealing with walking. And the other thing you can see is he's able to perform this in real time and have almost instant, immediate, perfect control, showing that our data-driven algorithm is really able to easily adapt to his signals. And if you read the study, you can see that his brain signals were right over electrode CZ for those neurologists who are well aware of EEG. This is right over the middle of the central sulcus where anatomically your walking or foot regions would be. Next, oh, I have to end the video, sorry. So let me unscreen share. Okay.
You want me to take back the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. There we go. Can you see it okay?
Great, yes. Wonderful. Okay. And you can just go to the next slide. That's all right.
Okay. Next slide results. Okay. Is that the right? That's the right side, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on this slide. I won't show you the actual video. But what we did in the interim while we were waiting for our strength training to allow him to use FES to walk again using the Parastep system, we also tried him on a local mat to see if he can actually use, if he could do treadmill walking by thinking about walking. This is a little safer than the functional electrical stimulation device because it's not over ground. In addition, we're not requiring him to use muscle contractions. Rather, he can let the device sort of move his legs for him. So again, we just wanted to take it from safe test bed A to safe test bed B before we actually had him go over ground, because obviously I didn't want him to fall. In addition, we wanted to make sure that he had enough training and wasn't going to suffer from autonomic dysreflexia and get too lightheaded when he was in the device. So this really helped to make sure he was able to handle all of this. Next slide, please. So now, before I show you the actual person walking over ground, I just wanted to show you the third safe test bed that we did, which is once we were able to see that he was able to use his brain waves to control walking again, and this was very quickly. It only took him about 1 to 2 sessions of 1-hour sessions of just sitting there to learn how to play the game. We then performed him in a suspended test where he used the brain waves of walking to control the electrical stimulation of his walking, but he was suspended so that we didn't see that he fell, and we wanted to make sure that everything actually worked, and that when he did think about walking, and I saw that he is actually doing that, and the BCI outputted that the electrical stimulation would actually stimulate, and it would do it in a pattern that was most appropriate for him. So let me try to show you this video real quick.
Okay, let me get off the screen share. Okay, it's all yours.
Great.
You're going to try to play the video? Okay.
Yes, so it should be playing, actually.
Yeah, it's very good.
So what you're seeing is he's suspended off the ground. He has his FES pads mounted on his quadriceps, his tibialis anterior. Turned out he did not need gluteal muscle stimulation. He was able to sit and stand and have good enough posture without it. And you can see in the back behind him, that's a little backpack where the amplifier and batteries and device controllers were mounted. So now he's being told to think about walking, and what you can see is his legs are being stimulated in a cyclic-like pattern to allow for him to walk again. What we did to understand how his walking patterns actually worked was during his training, I basically videotaped him and figured out how to control the device so that it matches his walking pattern. Obviously, there's things like postural stability and being able to shift your weight that needs to be trained during your FES stimulation training. And you have to be able to match this when he's trying to use the BCI device in real time. And one thing that's nice is this can easily be done across many individuals, as you can change these parameters and soft code them so that you have an individualized functional electrical stimulation pattern for each individual based on how they are trained. So now you can go back to the PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay. Do you want the conclusion or?
Yeah, I believe there's a conclusion.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, beautiful. So, as you're, oh, sorry, before we get to the conclusion, let me just show you the third video, which I find to be the most important video, which is showing you him able to use the BCI to control his overground walking in real time. And based on this, I gave him verbal cues versus textual cues. And
okay, you want the screen? You want the screen, Christina? Okay,
yes.
There you go. There you go.
And I apologize if you can't hear me, but you should be able to see it. I put
yes, we can see it.
Wonderful. So right now I told him to relax and remain idle. So he's just standing there, being stimulated just to stand. And then in a few seconds, I'm going to ask him to start walking, where he again just attempts to walk. The brain-computer interface figures out, hey, you're attempting to walk, and then immediately sends a control signal to the functional electrical stimulation device to allow him to walk again. So as you can see, he's able to actually walk. Obviously, it's a little crude because we're using FES, and he has to work on a lot of postural stability as well as weight shifting. And then once he got really good at doing that, he's able to really walk in a little more of a better cyclic-like pattern. Now when you see he's going to approach a cone, so this is our little game, just like in the virtual reality, and I say, hey, stop and relax, and you know, remain idle for as long as you can. And so you can see it takes a second, but he's able to stop, and now he will go into a standing state. And then from there, I can then ask him to start walking again. What is great about our BCI system is not only was he able to do this with textual cues as well as verbal cues, but he was also able to hold a light conversation while performing this. Again, showing that we are really able to filter out just your walking versus not walking electrophysiological signals, and other signals like, say, using your arms because you have to keep yourself posturally stable, as well as maybe speaking or visual cues, do not seem to conflict with the device, and he's still able to maintain a good level of control.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I see he has a little circumduction in his gait, and I'm a neurologist. Did a movement disorder fellowship. I'm in Pasadena. Mm-hmm. So is with these prosthetics, is he able to bend at the prosthetic knee? Like, what's the degree of flexion that he could do?
So actually, the bending, you're not bending your knees. What it is it creates a triple flexion response. So all he's doing is he's shifting his weight to allow his foot to be lifted without enough weight to clear, and then the electrical stimulation causes a triple flexion response along his deep peroneal nerve, which then allows the foot to dorsiflex, which he can then swing in front of him. So he's not actually bending his knees.
So he's just circumducting.
Yeah, because he needs to perform weight shifting just to allow for dorsiflexion of the tibialis anterior so that he can clear that foot and then advance forward.
So what about being able to make it like a normal gait where you are flexing at the knee and bringing the knee up?
Well, if you were to do that, you would want to use the previous device that I showed you, which is the Locomat or a robotic exoskeleton. Another thing that people are starting to do is combining these two technologies so that you have a robot exoskeleton to allow you to perform those better, more appropriate gait cycles and be able to actually bend your knee, while adding the functional electrical stimulation, which allows for muscle contractures, as well as an improvement in endurance, and as well as the benefit of actually stimulating your own muscles. The other problem with functional electrical stimulation is that you fatigue quite quickly because you're stimulating muscles that have atrophied, right? So the robot exoskeleton usually can take over at that time and allow you to continue to walk without the need of FES. So that is why we actually looked into both types of devices and saw whether or not he could use both of them. And it was quite successful. He was able to use both, regardless of the electrical stimulation versus the robot exoskeleton. And depending on what you want to do with this technology, that's going to drive which one you're going to want to pick. So if you want to do this in someone, say, with incomplete spinal cord, where there's lots of residual or spare connections, and you're trying to really make sure that they co-activate their upper and lower motor neurons, you might want to look more into the robot exoskeleton. But at the same time, using the BCI, because a big problem with the Locomat, as they've learned, is that people slacken the device. And what that means is they simply sit back and sort of let the device run for them, and this has no benefit whatsoever because they're not really trying to co-activate their upper and lower motor neurons. Yeah. If we can force them to think about walking while using that robot exoskeleton,
maybe they'll take over a little bit.
Then yes, maybe it can take over, and maybe some residual and spare connections can reactivate through long-term potentiation.
Or at least try to reinforce some of those connections so they become stronger.
Exactly. However, say if you wanted to use a device where it was more for a complete spinal cord injury and you wanted someone to see if they can use, say, a future implant, where you would implant something into their brain, as well as maybe a subcutaneous functional electrical stimulation device or an epidural stimulation device. Dr. Reggie Edgerton at UCLA is doing a lot of those surgeries right now. One thing you would need to do is create a safe test bed and figure out where those brain areas are. And that's where the BCI FES would come in, because you would train them in one, gaining muscle endurance as well as muscle strength to be able to do that type of overground walking, as well as two, find the appropriate brain areas for that individual that underlies actual walking. Because as I said, once you undergo a spinal cord injury, you actually do undergo cortical reorganization, and so those brain areas as well as brain frequencies may actually change.
Okay, so in 2000, a little bit about me. In 2000, I think it was 2007, I met with some scientists at Caltech, and they were experimenting with animal models as far as putting a microchip on the motor cortex, and trying to do this exact same thing, but through the chip technology. And also following this technology through the American Academy of Neurology, I posted a couple of articles in the link, and I've actually gone on public TV and talked about this, the MPL system they did. I think they did it at Johns Hopkins, where the guy did bilateral shoulder amputee, and they were actually able to get him to use both his arms just by thinking about it. You know, I haven't seen at Huntington Hospital. They publicized on a newsletter that they had robotic legs. I know Health South had this way back in 2006 or something like that, but I haven't seen in the physical therapy departments actually provide people with robotic legs. Or when is this going to get out into the physical therapy facilities where we see people actually getting this and using it?
Well, the one device actually that they have that's commercially available, and I'm starting to see it in a lot more research laboratories actually. I was just at University of Miami a few weeks ago, and physical therapists were using it, is the Esco Bionics. And this is a lower extremity robotic exoskeleton that you can use to walk over ground. One thing, obviously, is that robots are always very expensive, so you're always dealing with that issue, right? Yeah, which is another reason why, again, based on the application that you actually want to do, you need to decide, hey, do I want FES, which could be cheaper, because electrical stimulation pads they're just this big and they're very cheap.
It's like EMG nerve conduction.
Exactly.
Excuse me. You could, Dr. List, could you please introduce yourself? I'm failing as a host. Could you introduce yourself so you can the other people in the panel know who you are, please?
Yeah. So my name is Jerome Lisk. I'm a neurologist in Pasadena, California, and I'm at Casa Clina Hospital, which is a rehabilitation hospital in Pomona, Huntington Hospital in Pasadena, and also Methodist Hospital as well. I did a movement disorder fellowship at the University of Texas, did research at the University of Michigan in neurosurgery department on pediatric brain tumors, and I'm a tech nut geek by heart, and I'm constantly following rock health and startup health, and anything that has to do with technology and medicine. I'm looking to collaborate with people. Like when I was trying to collaborate with the scientists at Caltech, looking to collaborate with local people in local universities on this type of thing.
Well, we hope you become part of the global neurology hangout community, Jerome. And Manuel, could you introduce yourself, please, so everyone knows who you are?
Hello, yeah, I'm Manuel Menendez. I'm also a neurologist. I'm from Spain. I'm a general neurologist, and I'm also interested in this kind of technology, so a very interesting talk. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Welcome, Manuel. Okay, folks, open it up for more questions or comments.
Well, my other question: have you seen this in California? Like, have you seen physical therapy? Like, first, tell me where you are again. Are you at UCI or?
Right now I'm at UCLA, but I was at UCI beforehand. And yeah, well, there actually is a great program that I've been working with because they're great for recruitment as well as future collaborations. And it's a company called Project Walk. Okay. Project Walk, what they do is they hire their own physical therapists, and you can either pay for a gym membership or you can pay to go there and have specific sessions where you're allowed to use things like the local mat. I believe they have an Esco Bionics, and as well as many other types of gym equipment. They're a bit novel and don't actually exist in the clinic right now. And this is great for people who have spinal cord injury that really want to get to that next step. They want to go above and beyond what their traditional care was, and they really want to make sure that they reduce a lot of these medical comorbidities that are associated with their extensive wheelchair use. So that's if you're looking for collaborations and a great place to find physical therapists that are very tech savvy and using all these devices, I would definitely suggest starting there. They just recently branched out where I believe they're starting to open up centers across the country, but it did start actually here in California.
Well, you guys are kind of in Santa Monica with LA traffic. You're kind of across the country too.
Yes.
So it takes about 2 hours to get to Santa Monica.
That's
so
my
maybe I can help,
2 hours.
Maybe I can help you set something up over here in Pasadena. But you haven't seen it at just the standard physical therapy facilities.
No, and I think that has a lot to do with insurance companies, as well as a lot of physical therapists are a little hesitant to use these things. They don't like getting something in a person in a technology they don't really know how to use, or if they had training, they decide, oh, after I used it several times, everyone started slacking in it because, again, they didn't give them that instruction. Hey, don't just sit there. It's not the fall asleep machine. It's the please think about it or try to walk while you're using it. And so that's why with the Locomat, many hospitals have it. Even the Long Beach VA hospital here has one. However, not a lot of people use them because the phase 3 clinical trial showed that it didn't have a significant efficacy over standard gait training, and so that's really why. And that had a lot to do with slacking and the fact that people would sit in the devices rather than attempt to actually walk. So that's where needs to be a bit of health education as well as a bit of introducing something like a brain-computer interface to really force people to actively try to walk when you're in these devices.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. I didn't think about the slacking. You see them always advertising it, but they never tell you about things like that.
Yeah, well, they don't want to because they want you to buy it.
All right. Well, Sean, do you have any comments or questions?
I mean, Christine, congratulations and good luck with your dissertation here. It's fascinating. It's great to see what you're doing. I have a handful of questions, but I don't want to monopolize. I guess first thing that comes to mind, you talked a little bit about filters and being able to separate out signal, I guess, from the more central part of the homunculus as compared to language centers, arm location, etc. What spatial resolution are you using on your EEG? Is it the standard 1020 placement, or do you have a more granular placement of electrodes?
No, it's a standard. It's actually a 1010 placement because it's a 64-channel cap. I actually only needed to use 32 channels because since I know that the brain region isn't going to expand too far away from the central sulcus, I didn't need to record things like, say, way low on the occipital lobe or or somewhere here on the temporal lobe where there's a lot of muscle activity, and those tend to contaminate your EEG signals in the first place.
Sure. So thinking about a path of commercialization and maybe iterating, do you have plans in place now to see what is the minimal footprint that you can get away with using, or is that even in your spectrum of thought right now?
No, actually, we are in the process of doing that, as well as reducing the amplifier, because I don't know if you've used a lot of EEG equipment, your amplifier is a bit big. So if we can miniaturize that, we can create something that's a little more commercially appropriate. In terms of reducing the number of channels, what we did is we started at 64. We would reduce the number of channels until we found that your classifier performance actually would start reducing, and then that would kind of give us a little bit of a sweet spot number for each individual. Because right now I'm using commercially available EEG cap. Obviously, it comes with all 64 channels on the cap. But once you determine, oh, hey, I only need about 10 channels, well, then you only need to gel up those 10 channels for every other subsequent use of that system. And that's actually what we have done.
Have you thought about looking at something like the Epoch EEG device that's a little bit more cheap and more for the brain hacker, biohacker crowd? That's something that's very disposable practically, or is that still kind of not on the horizon yet for you?
No, we are, and we're building our own, as well as working with G-Tech. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They are huge. They're very large in the brain-computer interface fields. They sell novel EEG equipment, and one thing that they're just selling right now is a dry electrode system that's very low in number of channels, but is very configurable for your BCI applications. So obviously, a big complaint if you're going to commercialize this. You're not going to have an EEG tech go home with you, gel you up every single day, right? Because you need a little bit of conductive gel in order to send the signal. You're going to want a dry system that, hey, you can put a cap on your head, or that's why I mentioned a future implant, again, because you would want something that is completely unseen by someone else, and they're not going to ask you about it in the community, that you can easily put on and wear throughout the day.
Very good. Manuel, do you have any questions? You're quiet back there.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask Christine about the outcome of these patients. Do you have any data if the BCI system improves muscle atrophy in these patients? Using this system may improve the atrophy in the lower limbs?
Absolutely. So one thing we did is before every weekly session, we'd have our physical therapist perform range of motion tests, as well as sort of figure out what the overall girth is. So I measure the muscle girth every single session. I think the biggest contributing factor to the fact that he did actually improve and increase his muscle girth, although this is a very active individual. He went to Project Walk and does a lot of standing frames as well as exercising. But I think a lot of the improvement in his girth had to do with the functional electrical stimulation training itself, being able to train to sit, to stand, and walk again. These are all new things that need to sort of, be able to be done in parallel by reducing his muscle atrophy. So he was sent home with his own FES device, and we gave him a bit of physical exercise homework. So every night he would have to perform, as many until it fatigued, kicking, as many of his tibialis anterior stimulation, as well as stimulation of his own quadriceps, where we'd put leg weights on his ankles, and he would try to lift it using the FES device and the leg weights, and seeing how high up he can get. This is also very important because if his muscles were too atrophied, and I immediately sat him in the FES device and said, hey, go from sit to stand, well, he can easily break something. So we want to make sure that you are ready to stand before you even stand, and so that's what a lot of the at-home training, as well as physical therapist training, had to deal with. In addition, we have them undergo many different types of scans, a DEXA scan, for instance, to make sure that you don't have too much osteoporosis, because if you are 5 years post-injury, your bones also have depleted quite a bit as well. So in addition to muscle strength training, you also want to do some bone strength training, which is why he was a great candidate, because he would go on his standing frame. He built his own standing frame at home and would go on a standing frame, which really helped him prevent a lot of the osteoporosis, muscle atrophy. So yeah, it was very good on him. He was doing all the right things that if you had a patient like that, you'd say, hey, I wish all my patients were like you, you know. But that definitely is a very important factor. So there is quite a bit of training, which is why I wanted to mention that not only are you doing BCI training, but you have to do a bit of FES training as well, because you need to be able to safely sit to stand as well as stand and walk.
Gene, do you have any comments or questions?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, I'm not an expert in the field, but I know we've had EEG for a while and electrical muscle stimulation. What's the core of sort of what you were able to overcome? Is it the signal processing? Is that what it is? Like the computer algorithms that was written to analyze the brain signal?
Yes, the computer algorithms took us quite a bit. Ours is a bit of a novel algorithm where we just tried again to improve in performance as well as improve any confounders. So things like, say, if you talk, is that going to actually start the system? Because we are really interested in safety. That should always be the #1 concern. And you do not want a device to turn on when you're just trying to talk to your friends, right? You don't want to cross the street when there's a no-go signal, right? So that was a huge concern, as well as trying to get all the wireless technologies up and running so that they are good enough and reliable enough to really send signals to and from each other and make sure that they're safely administered, so that we have relay systems in place to really make sure that says, hey, the computer really does want you to walk. You can turn on the signals now. If there's any mistake there, obviously, because this is overground walking, it can be quite dangerous. And so that was a big feat of ours, is making sure that the wireless technology was reliable enough, as well as our computer algorithms.
Thank you.
Jerome or Sean?
Well, Sean said he had some more questions. I mean, please dominate.
Yeah,
I'd like
thank you.
to hear your questions.
Thanks. I'm curious about a couple of other things. I wonder if you have in your plans to study the effect on dysautonomia or on mood. I would think that by affecting muscle strength, muscle improvement, and muscle tone, you may have a positive effect on the autonomic nervous system. And I would also be curious to know if there's actually, cognitive changes that develop as a consequence of either directly because of improved function, or even indirectly through rewiring of the lateral prefrontal region in response to the new stimulation.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did is for our BCI is every time you would come in, we would have a short training session where I would collect some preliminary data of your brain signals of walking versus not walking. The main reason because I did this is if you're undergoing an intervention like this, and the same is in stroke, your brain waves do actually change. You can see some expansion as well as some shrinking, usually around the motor area that is of interest through your EEG signals. So in order to compensate for this, or at least to track these changes over time, we developed a subject-specific training model for each time you would come in. Again, so if you read the study in our appendix, you can actually see his brain maps do change over time, and so that's something we were interested in tracking. And I know a colleague of mine is running a study right now where he's coming up with some good fancy math to sort of see how does that actually change over time, and is this consistent across stroke individuals and spinal cord injury individuals, or is this something that's consistent? In terms of the autonomic response, I know our group does not specialize that, mainly because we're engineers. But the Miami project, which is another big project, again, I was just there visiting, they actually are doing that. And they just purchased an exobionic robotic exoskeleton where they want to see if there is actual autonomic changes when you're training in robots and improving your muscle mass.
Maybe we could have a hangout with the Miami people and you.
Absolutely.
I'm here in Miami. I could try to get a hold of them.
Yeah, well, they have a huge center, and so if you want to do a lot of spinal cord research
I don't know, maybe Sean has some connections down there. Do you know anybody down there, Sean?
Well, sure. I mean, I was actually on the board of directors of the Brain Injury Association of Florida and had the great experience of being involved with the Bruno Conti Foundation down there at the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis. So,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that the University of Miami?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you an engineer, Christine? Or are you a neurologist?
I'm an engineer, actually. I had my undergraduate training in mechanical engineer. I actually used to work on HVAC systems, and then I got interested in brain research and ran with it.
So you're
I'm a biomedical engineer.
You're in the biomedical engineering department at UCLA?
I'm actually in Department of Neurology at UCLA right now, in the Wireless Health Institute.
Wow. Okay, can you tell me a little bit about how the engineering department and the neurology department at UCLA, like how they collaborate? Is there a biomedical engineering and this wireless institute? When did that get started, and how did you guys start collaborating?
Sure. So the Wireless Health Institute, I believe, started several years ago. I want to say 8 to 10 years ago. Basically, my advisor, Dr. Bruce Dopkin, as well as a few other people in electrical engineering and computer engineering, Dr. Majid Saravzada, as well as Dr. William Kaiser and Dr. Greg Potty, basically got together and sought out a lot of physicians because they said, hey, we can build all these cool wireless devices, but we don't know what to use it for. We don't know who would want to use it, what we should use it for, how we should use it. So they built and became the directors of the Wireless Health Institute at UCLA, where now they basically we meet every single week, physicians and engineers in the same room, and we determine what really we need to build and what we need to do to help physicians get to that next level. So right now I'm running a clinical trial on creating a self-management program using wireless activity monitors for stroke individuals in the community. What is great about this institute is that you are really forced to have engineers meet with physicians on a weekly basis every Friday, and you are forced really to make sure that you collaborate and that you understand what the goals and needs of the physicians are in order to create behavior change in these individuals, as well as to understand the true limitations of your patients. I can tell you a lot of engineers are very uneducated when it comes to stroke or spinal cord injury. They don't understand what people can or cannot do, how it affects them, what you really need to look out for. For instance, they would give me a device and say, hey, just take this hand and take this hand and put it together like this. And I say, oh, well, if you have a stroke, you have a contracture typically. So how are you going to do that? So that's a great example where design and physicians can really come together to create a device that's actually going to be used by people in the field that actually can use it.
So this is under the Department of Neurology, or just neurologists are involved?
Neurologists are involved. So my advisor is the director of the Wireless Health Institute, and he co-directs with the other engineers. So they really lead it as this is half physicians, half engineers coming together to create behavior change.
So when you say you're in the Department of Neurology, you mean you're not necessarily in the Department of Neurology, you're working with them. Is that correct?
No, I'm in the Department of Neurology, but my office is in an engineering building next to engineers. And then that's how that works, is you really want to make sure the manager is someone who still has their foot in the physician's door. So I attend rounds, I go to, I go on lectures, I meet with physicians on a daily basis, and I meet with patients as well, and really watch them through their physical therapy or their occupational therapy to figure out what's the next device, what's the next thing that they probably should be using that we can quantify, because us engineers, we can shove devices on anything.
So is that true for all the? Is that true for all the engineers? All of you in the Department of Neurology?
No, they actually use a lot of students. So a lot of these students make their PhDs and their dissertations out of the devices and the algorithms that they build for our large-scale clinical trials. So we're really trying to train them not only in engineering, but what the purpose of what their dissertation is on. Especially if you're in computer and electrical engineering, you kind of get stuck working on an algorithm, but you never know what's the use. And so having someone sort of be the go-between your physician and those students to really make sure, like I sit next to students and train them every day on, you know, what they're doing and why they're doing it is the most important thing. To really help them understand where the next where that device needs to go, what you need to be concerned about when you're building it, because it really is highly dependent on your target population. And understanding what your target population is a very hard thing for an engineer to understand.
What about neurosurgery? You guys in the Department of Neurosurgery as well, or are all the engineers only in the Department of Neurology?
The engineers aren't in the Department of Neurology. They're students in the Electrical and Computer Engineering department. I'm the only one who's in neurology. And it's only because I have a biomedical engineering background that I'm able to say, hey, yes, I do understand, you know, the neurology side, but I also understand the engineering side. And so I'm the sort of the go-between.
Oh, I got you. So you're the liaison. Got
yes,
you. You're the liaison. Okay, are you guys in the Department of Neurosurgery as well? Are you working with, I mean, are there any other engineers in the Department of Neurosurgery, or neurosurgery is not involved yet?
I know Dr. Perudian. He's in Department of Neurosurgery. Yeah, he's starting to do BCI stuff. So I know he's been actively collaborating with engineers. I'm not quite sure which engineers he ended up picking with. I actually was about to join his lab, but then I changed my mind for a different trial. But yeah, he definitely collaborates with engineers, and I know they're doing a lot of also algorithm work, because they're doing a lot of like natural language processing and stuff like that, trying to understand how brainwaves really, you know, how do we decode language, and how can we use that in the future to create a device.
Speaking of students, Mohammed, do you have any questions or comments? You're quiet back there.
Actually, that was an excellent presentation. Good to see what's happening there. I guess the neurologist covered everything. Thank you, Christina, as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so good to have 3 neurologists on something like this. This is a big day for us. To have, you know, like you said, Christina, being able to mix with doctors while you're doing the research. This platform is the kind of easy way to do that. The Hangout platform is to allow like 3 neurologists like you had today be able to interact with you and to deepen understanding. I think it's just fantastic.
Well, you know, I wanted to ask, are you using functional MRI in any of this to kind of like look at like before and after, you know, you're using the device?
Not in this particular study, but we have another study on a brain-computer interface functional electrical stimulation device for stroke. And what we're trying to do there is just stimulate the tibialis anterior to improve dorsiflexion after a stroke and improve foot drop. And there, since it's a phase 1 trial, we actually have funding to be able to use the fMRI machine at UCI.
And then with the cortical reorganization, how are you going to look at if through using your device you start to have, you know, further cortical reorganization, and does that cortical reorganization go back to its pre-injury baseline, or does some other cortical reorganization occur? Is there a way to, I figure that maybe functional MRI is a good way to look at that, but are you guys looking at that at all?
Absolutely. fMRI is a great tool, but since this is still in feasibility, we don't have funding for that. So we are using the EEG maps themselves. So if I look at the major differences between your walking pattern and your not walking pattern in your EEG, what brain areas and brain frequencies do those occur? And since I have you repeat this over several weeks to months, as you can see in the appendix of this actual study, you can see the brain areas do actually, you know, expand a little bit and then contract, and eventually they do hit steady state. And I think that has a lot to do with motor learning. And so you've hit the retention stage of the motor learning curve, and once you've hit that, stuff tends to reach stability and sort of it found the network that makes it work.
And are you using QEEG at all?
No, no.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Any more questions for Sean? Go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, sure. I'm just curious, does your collaborative environment have a commercialization arm or links to venture capital firms You having a hard time hearing me?
Yeah, sorry.
Does your collaborative environment have a road to capitalization or links to venture capital firms that you already have established relationships with? Is that even part of what you're working with?
I actually will be starting to do that soon. I think depending on where you are in the Wireless Health Institute at UCLA, it really depends on what you want to do. So say if I said, hey, I want to become a professor, they might not hook me up as much with those types of people. But say I said, hey, I want to do a startup out of this. We have all sorts of things set in place on how you can apply for your SBIR grant. So this is your small business grants for startups, especially in the medical device community, as well as Dr. Majid Sarazada has his own startup companies and has had quite a bit of success of getting his other students into companies or become a CTO or a consultant at least for these different companies. It really is dependent upon your training, and I think that's something important. Anytime you want to mentor or even have people on your team that you're going to manage, you want to make sure that their training is in line with what you're actually doing.
And you guys have Lava and the new Silicon Beach there too, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of offshoots, and being at UCI and UCLA, it's great because your neighbors tend to be also in startups, or they work for Edwards Life Sciences, or they already are at Massimo. There are a lot of companies down here, as well as a lot of startups that really help sort of breed that type of collaboration and consultation type of work.
So is the Wireless Institute, is that just the neurologists at UCLA? Are you guys involving some of the private practice neurologists in the area in Santa Monica as well?
It's all dependent on the trial. So this current clinical trial that I'm working on, we actually work with Rancho Los Amigos Hospital. It's basically anyone that you can befriend enough, that's interested in your research enough, that would want to become an extra site. That really helps open the door for you in terms of which types of practices. I don't believe that we actually look into any private practices, however, because if you're doing a large-scale clinical trial, you want more people.
Yeah, not for research, but for those physicians in the Santa Monica area that are neurologists that may be interested in, I don't know, as you say, mentoring or collaborating with you guys, as far as attending your monthly meetings. Are there other ways for them to get involved besides being a research site?
I would think they would just have to sort of meet with the directors, and I know they do that quite a bit. They'll have meetings. They'll kind of show what they've done, what we can do, and just kind of take it from there and see what the kind of fit is. I mean, sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. So.
Right.
Very good. Well, this is a great hangout. Man, I'm glad all you guys came out.
Very nice.
That was a great talk.
Yeah, especially the neurologist, man. Thanks very much. And Gene, thank you. And Christina, your dedication, I'm sure, is appreciated by paraplegics and quadriplegics the world over. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming out today. Any parting comments from anybody?
Thank you, Christine.
No, but I guess at the end, if you could maybe contact everyone individually and see if they're willing to share their emails, I guess.
Sure, that would be good. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
her and I are kind of in the same state.
Yeah.
And, I know Hermanowitz at UCI, and I know Nader, and I know all the people in the movement disorder department at USC, UCLA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is just the start. We can have many more hangouts. In any direction you guys want to go, we're game, especially in neurology. So, okay, very good. We'll wrap it up, and once again, thank you, panel, and thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, good night.